I find it a little difficult to say what the subject matter of this seminar is going to be, because it's too fundamental to give it a title. I'm going to talk about what there is. Now, the first thing, though, that we have to do is to get our perspectives with some background about the basic ideas which, as Westerners living today in the United States, influence our everyday common sense, our fundamental notions about what life is about. And there are historical origins for this which influence us more strongly than most people realize. Ideas of the world which are built into the very nature of the language we use and of our ideas of logic and of what makes sense altogether. And these basic ideas I call myth, not using the word myth to mean simply something untrue, but to use the word myth in a more powerful sense. A myth is an image in terms of which we try to make sense of the world. Now, for example, a myth in a way is a metaphor. If you want to explain electricity to someone who doesn't know anything about electricity, you say, well, you talk about an electric current. Now, the word current is borrowed from rivers. It's borrowed from hydraulics. And so you explain electricity in terms of water. Now, electricity is not water. It behaves actually in a different way, but there are some ways in which the behavior of water is like the behavior of electricity, and so you explain it in terms of water. Or if you're an astronomer and you want to explain to people what you mean by an expanding universe and curved space, you say, well, it's as if you had a black balloon, and there are white dots on the black balloon, and those dots represent galaxies. And as you blow the balloon up, uniformly, all of them grow and grow farther apart. But you're using an analogy. The actual universe is not a balloon with white dots on it. So in the same way, we use these sort of images to try and make sense of the world, and we at present are living under the influence of two very powerful images, which are, in the present state of scientific knowledge, inadequate. And one of our major problems today is to find an adequate, satisfying image of the world.
All right, everybody, here we are. Pearls of Wisdom. It's been a while since I've been on, right? But let's go back and think about some of the early programs I did for Pearls of Wisdom. We don't look at time linearly. Literally. We don't look at it in a linear fashion. I'm going to leave. I could restart this, but I'm going to leave that mistake in. It's a great way to start the show with mistakes, right? Yes, I said early on when I started this that there was going to be no organized time frame to any of it. And I think I've just proven that in a great fashion. For it's been many months, according to the calendar, that I've been away from talking into this microphone. But that's okay. That's okay. This show is called Ode to Alan Watts. He brought us into the show, and he's going to bring us out of the show, which is somewhat typical. And you say, well, Ode to Alan Watts. Are we going to talk about Alan Watts? No, we're not going to really talk about Alan Watts. The whole concept of the ode is because really me coming on this microphone was because of his effect on me over the years. Certainly this last year, it was great having his words, his wisdom, his spirit, whatever you want to say, over me. I listened to him just constantly. And certainly a lot of my thoughts are formed from listening to them and just soaking it in and thinking about things. It was it was a big year, as they say, big years. There was a lot that happened. There was many personal things going on in my life, a lot of changes, the possibility of stepping off the earth at one point, yes. The darkness and the light, as always, as they say, the yin and the yang, right? The best perception of that for me is the two sides of the mountain. You're the mountain, and one side is encased in shadow, and the other in light. And certainly the balance of those two sides, which is one thing I think I've come into, is, and I don't want to see everyone has to see things. I'm not going to ever say anything like that. But for me, perceiving that you should balance yourself with that shadow and light, that it's there. It's going to be there. If you try too much to be encased in light all the time, it won't work. And of course, if you're in the shadows all the time, it also won't work. For me, all right, maybe for someone it's different. But that's one thing I definitely pursued. One of the other great pursuits as far as the mind goes was delving into perception, the perception of myself and the world's perception of myself. And when I say perception of myself is how I perceive myself according to what I think the world perceives of me, and then the actual perception the world has of me. And they're two very different things. If you want to delve into that, it's pretty interesting because most people, the way they think the world sees them is very different than the way the world actually sees them. And to try to find the middle ground of that and understand that about yourself it's an interesting exercise, and definitely one I delved into quite a bit this last year. And along with all kinds of other things, I started to take my steps into what will be my next move, as they say. A lot of people around me always wonder what my next move's going to be. I've heard it from a bunch of people because I think people that know me are never sure what I'm going to do next, and I don't purposefully do that. I do everything I do is got like no rhyme or reason. It just kind of happens, and then I go there. So this last year I spent in massage school, training to be a massage therapist, focusing on a lot of things. Also, while doing that, I went to a therapeutic massage and training center in Westfield, very intensely studied. I was bestowed the honor of being valedictorian of my class. Hooray. I also did some certifications at New Jersey Massage School in Parsippany for cranial sacral therapy. I have 3 certifications in that now, and I almost had a 4th advanced clinic, but it got canceled because I think I was the only one that was signed up for it. But hopefully that'll pop up here in the near future again. And, back in college, I really missed a lot of classes. And people always they thought I just didn't care about education, I think. But really, a lot of classes I went into, I just was not feeling them, and it was the wrong move. Don't get me wrong. I should have been putting more time into that. But most of the time that I wasn't there, I was actually in the library studying philosophy and poetry and things that really turned me on, and I spent a lot more time learning on my own than I did in the school system. So when I went into the massage school this year, I decided I was going to do something different. I was going to engage myself in the school, engage myself in other learning processes during the time period, but also add on some really intensive self-learning. And I did all that. And the real reward for me this year is the knowledge above everything else, certifications, diplomas, awards, all that business, all wonderful words people said to me. about my time this year, and I love that all. I do not poo-poo any of that. I love that all, but the true reward is always the knowledge that you walk away with, and I got quite a bit: anatomy, physiology, kinesiology, modalities, the 11 body systems, which is going to be a big focus of mine moving forward. And I will be moving forward with this new business, which starting massage therapy, it's going to also go into strength training, nutrition, and eventually the real focus will be longevity. Okay? The focus will be taking this thing for another 50 years. And everybody else too. Being a part of other people's lives and trying to prolong life as long as possible. Just for fun, I don't want to call it work, it's play. But certainly that's a focus with what I'll be doing here moving into the future. And for now, we're probably going to put Pearls of Wisdom's podcast on a shelf, which is a strange thing to say because, I never thought of this show that way, where it had to be happening all the time. So though we're saying we're putting it on a shelf, we're just tucking it away. Like everything else in my life, it probably will circle back around at some point. Because this show is really about talking about different ways to look at things, right? Provoking thought. Me trying to be honest about myself and trying not to be judgmental about the world around me, not talking that way. So I do think it probably will come back. There's a lot of subjects, some I kind of brought up here today that I just glazed over, which may come back up in the future, as well as some other things that I spoke of in the past that I haven't gotten to, and I will hopefully get around to sometime in the future. But I'll put that all out of my thoughts, and one of the reasons I'm doing this is I will continue a podcast, but now it's going to be called Temple of Body, which is the name of my new business, and it's going to revolve around massage therapy, yes, the body systems, longevity, health maintenance. Some of the people who are going to be my colleagues that I am starting to meet, different people that I really like that are in the industry that I'm going into. I've known some people that are in the industry, and I have all my fellow students from my class. Some of them were amazing. I got to tell you, I'm going to talk more about it on the new podcast, but wow, a great group of people that I got to experience for this whole last year. Students and teachers. So that's where I'm going to go with this, because I want to put all my focus into this new gig. If you know me out there, you know that's how I work. I try to put all my focus into whatever the gig is. So I'll be doing that. But we're going to wrap this one up as an ode to Alan Watts, because I think that when I get on this microphone, there's no question that everything is flavored by Alan Watts and the relationship I've had with his words through the years. Certainly the end of the year, right? It's Christmas Day. This is being recorded on Christmas Day. This is what I'm choosing to do on my Christmas Day. I think it's a good time to do this. There's meaning this time of year. My father passed away on Christmas Eve 10 years ago, which I won't put out there that it's maybe as impactful as some other people feel about a parent dying. I've spoke about this before. Any time a parent dies, there's a certain loss of a part of you, no matter what your relationship was. But also last year, towards the end of the year, I lost a very close friend who I'd been friends with for over 20 years. And that was impactful to a certain degree. But as is life, we move on, right? We go forward. And we try to experience whatever we can experience. And what's the reason for us being here? Well, there are things I would say I tapped into this year. And as much as I would say, you know, the yin and the yang, the light side of the mountain and the shadow side of the mountain, the balance inside of ourselves. Zen Buddhism. Would I classify myself as Zen Buddhist? People wonder sometimes. I don't, because I try not to be attached to things. I can't say that I am not, but I don't feel like I want to attach myself to things. Is it the closest representation of how I might think? Sure. I grew up Catholic. I don't have a problem with any religions. I think actually there's a lot of great things about different religions, but it all sort of comes back to me when anyone says, well, this is the best. What I do, the food I like, the sports team, the politician, the musical group, the religion, mine is the best. If we could just add a phrase, for me, it's the best for me, and something else might be the best for you, I think that could make things a little bit better between all of us. Because there's no reason anything has to be the best. Nothing is the best. Nothing is the best. It's only the best for somebody. There's always something that's maybe the best for somebody else. That's different. That's one conclusion I've come to. But over this year, yes, there was a lot of mistakes made on my part, as per usual. There's some really good decisions, and I think a lot of the choices I made and the right things I did were of great value. And maybe some of the mistakes I made were of lesser value than usual. And that's maybe a progression forward, if we want to call it that. Or, you know, but there's got to be balance in there, though, right? Is what I'm talking about. There's got to be balance. So the one thing I would say that I did have a morning in the middle of the summer when I was driving, and I had a moment of complete clarity. And what came to me was to just honor yourself. When you wake up, just be you. And it seems like such a, well, should we say cliche? I don't know if that's truly cliche, but a typical thing to say. But saying something and feeling something are very different things. And trying to make this point is like trying to lead you, almost like I could point you in a direction, but you really have to open your eyes for yourself. And that's how I did feel all of most of last year, maybe even leading up. You know, the closest representation I could give is the dark night of the soul. If you know what the dark night of the soul is, and I don't like to subscribe myself to specific things that way. But if you're looking for something, you know what the dark night of the soul is, it's probably something that I would classify myself as going through if I was going to represent anything. Where you feel like, or for me at least, that I did know that there was that ultimate light kind of in front of me, but I couldn't figure out really how to get into it. I had this strange thing where I called it a reverse blink. You know, when you blink, you don't realize it, but when you blink, there's that fraction of a second of darkness. It's so quick that you don't realize, but it is. You're closing your eyes to darkness. The reverse blink to me was a fraction of a second of light, knowing it was there, and then feeling like, at first, a certain elation. And I had many days of great elation, knowing, oh, wait a second, this is something I've been maybe searching for since I was a child. I mean, this is why I got into poetry and philosophy and to search out this light, right? So then a certain period of time of feeling like there was blinders on my eyes. And then it was difficult because the realization of knowing that light is there, but you can't get to it, and you're in your mind's eye, you're reaching to get rid of those blinders. You're trying to pull them off and figure out how to pull them off your face. And then one day you realize there's no blinders. Your eyes are just closed. Just open them. That's all. Just open up your eyes. And you open your eyes and you're not blinking anymore. You just open eyes. And then that realization of what's in front of you is what I'm talking about. And that's why it was a great year for me with turtles, because where I was living, walking over this bridge every day next to a river and seeing these turtles. And that idea of honoring yourself is like, looking at those turtles and knowing that they just wake up, they're searching for food, they've got their shelter, they just do their thing. They're just being a turtle. And then you look up at the trees, and the trees are just waving in the breeze, whatever. They're just being a tree. All these natural things around you. And that is one of the progressions, what's natural and what's not natural. And it's very simple, what's natural and what's not natural. If something grows, and when I say grows, I don't mean in height or width. I mean if there's cells that are continuously changing, and if it is progressing, if it's growing, it's natural. And everything that's growing is the same. It's an organism. It's natural, right? Anything that's not growing is not natural. So the sidewalk is not natural. It does not grow. Houses are not natural. They may be made of wood, which was once a tree, but it's not anymore, and it's not growing. And that's the easy separation of things, is when you go out and you're on the grass. The grass is real. It's natural. And when you wake up in the morning, the best representation of just being you, just going into the world as you. And that's all you have to do. Of course, yes, you go, oh, you have ambitions, you have hopes, you want to accomplish things. Great. It's fine. That's part of being you, but it's not the essence. The essence is just rising and being you, being a human being. We've created this space where we have to be chasing these things. We kind of all know this. We talk about it, but knowing and feeling are very different things. Being able to pursue the idea of the feeling and not just the words, it's very different things. So coming to that realization and being able to wake up and know, okay, this is what I need to do. It takes a little bit of pressure off of the pursuit of the things. You don't have to stop the pursuit of things, right? But it takes the pressure off of that those things you're pursuing are of such a great importance. They don't need to be of a great importance. You don't have to be worried all the time. You don't have to be pressured and stressed about it, getting this done or getting that done. You're going to actually accomplish it just as easily, more easily, and more fluidly without that part of your brain going into action and realizing, I just have to be me. I just have to be this human being, this organism that's part of this whole thing, and then do what I'm going to do, right? And for me, that's a conclusion I certainly came to, which I felt it was of grandeur. To be honest, I'll use that word of grandeur. And it's had great influence on how I continue with my forward momentum. I'll use that phrase, right? So anyway, I'm just talking the way I talk on this show. I'm glad that I did this for myself, which I said is what I did, and hopefully provoked thought in a lot of people. And, certainly we'll come back around with all of this. But moving forward in the new year, I will be opening up Temple of Body podcast, where we could talk about other great things, which is massage, which has been a part of my life for a long time. Receiving, certainly, but giving also, and not just this last year, but further back than that. And I love tuning forks and sound stuff, different than some people. I love the sound bowls. I love going to like a sound bowl thing. But I really love tuning forks a lot. But I like other I like the bowls when you hit them and they ring like a bell. Like I kind of like different ways of doing sound stuff, which I have my own techniques. And I have my own techniques for everything. To tell you the truth, and I won't talk too in depth about what I'm doing, because I will be talking in depth in the near future about it. But, this first year, I'm going to be developing my very own specific style of massage. And that's going to be my concentration. I will have cranial sacral therapy. I will have full body lymphatic massage. There'll be other things also, some reflexology, probably some sound stuff. But I'm going to actually spend this next year developing that stuff. I don't think I'm ready to bring that to the table yet. I need time. But the one thing I do feel I've developed and over a period of time, and I'm continuing to develop, is this very specific style of my own method, which is always, when I was 19, 20 years old, and I decided I wanted to do martial arts, and the first thing I did says, well, I've got to create my own martial art. I think it's always been the way I've worked. I start learning martial arts and I want to create my own. I pick up a guitar and I can strum a few chords and I want to write my own song. The moment I could write, I'm writing my own poems. I love reading them. And I love reading poems. I love studying the history of music. I loved learning things about martial arts when I was doing that. I love all of this. I love all the interaction of anything I get involved with, but I always at the core is I want to develop my own thing. The creation of something is of huge value to me for myself. And I've given a lot of massages this year already. Over this last year, I gave a lot of massages because not only was I doing them at school on other students, but I was also doing it in the clinic setting every week at school. But I was also doing a lot on the side myself on friends. And it's all coming together in a really cool way. So I'm going to tap into that. And I guess I'm getting on here at the end of 2024 to sort of just release something out of myself, whatever thoughts need to be released, let this year go, let this new year unfold. And, I've never been one of those people. I'm not big on birthdays. I'm not that kind. I don't, and I'm not that big on oh, it's a new year, start it up. I think you should just start up wherever you're at. But that being said, I'm here doing this because I feel like I need to wrap this year up and go into the next one. So I won't call myself hypocritical, but again, the yin and the yang, right? Oh, and it's so funny. I'll admit to it. I think I did a whole episode here. I did 30 minutes, and I don't think I had the record button pressed. So I said, instead of checking it, I just let the record button keep playing, and I decided I would just do the show over again. So I think there might be some thoughts I had from the first run that I'm not tapping into right now because I can't remember if I did them already or not. I'm good. I'm going to admit that right now I'm lost between the two episodes I recorded, and I don't think the first one came out. So this is the one you're getting, and hopefully it's provoked some thought. If you've listened to me in the past, hopefully you got something out of it. Hopefully you're excited about what I'm going to be doing, and hopefully you're excited about what you're going to be doing. Engaging yourself to me is just the thing. Just engage yourself. If you can't engage yourself in whatever's in front of you, it probably means you're not meant to be doing it. And remember that too, because a lot of people will think that's a difficult thing. And I understand it could be a difficult thing because people have families, people have houses, people have expectations. And so someone saying, if you're working somewhere and you're not engaged, but there's that paycheck, it's kind of a problem. You need to be engaged. And even with something that maybe you think you don't love, like a job that's providing you with enough money to live in New Jersey, which is becoming tougher and tougher for anyone who's creative to do. You may be surprised that you can engage yourself in something that you don't think is something you can engage yourself in. So there's always that possibility. But to me, it's a must to be able to engage. And I speak purely for myself. You don't have to listen to me. You don't have to engage. But you'll find that if you do, I think you'll find things working out quite nicely. Anyway. Pearls of Wisdom. Alan Watts going to take us out on this one again. And I don't know what else to say. I don't know if anything I've said has really provoked thought or been of great value to you. If it hasn't been, you probably haven't made it to this point anyway. But if you happen to know me and you want to write a little note, fine. On Instagram or Facebook or texting or email or whatever form. Or give me a call, or if you see me on the street or out there at the gym or around town and you want to say hey and chit-chat with me, whatever the case may be. All right, I'm going to take it out there instead of rattling on and on. Good night, everybody. Happy 2024 and even happier 2025.
There is no problem of life in the sense in which we ordinarily use that phrase. And that seems an almost astounding affront to our common sense. Life not a problem. We see it as nothing but problems. We regard ourselves in a morning, noon, and night struggle to solve the great problem of existence. And for some people this problem is why does the universe exist? For other people, the problem is, how am I going to get enough to eat? And therefore, when you take it at one extreme or the other, who can say that life is not a problem? And yet here is this audacious suggestion that what we are bothering about is a ghost. It's something that isn't really there. One of the characteristics of neurotic behavior, is it's repetitive. The neurotic personality keeps going through unsuccessful life patterns again and again and again, and nothing seems to be able to stop it. The round, or the rat race, of birth and death, that is to say, of life as we ordinarily live it. Because it is a round, it is a vicious circle, for the reason that we keep trying to solve problems that are not simply overwhelmingly difficult, but problems that are not problems at all. They only look like problems. And so when we tackle you see, impossible questions. Things go round and never come out. Now, take, for example, some of the many ghosts which haunt our minds.